I thought that people showed you who they were if you worked with them long enough. That was one of the dumb things I believed because it made life easier. You saw someone every weekday. You watched how they handled small problems, how they talked when they were tired, how they treated the cleaners and the reception staff, how they acted when a manager was not around. After a year or two, I thought you knew them in some basic way. I do not believe that anymore. I worked in accounts payable for a medical supply company outside Akron. It was not a big place, but it was not tiny either. We had about 60 people in the office and a warehouse attached to the back. We processed invoices for hospitals, nursing homes, clinics, and private buyers who ordered equipment through our sales team. It was the kind of company nobody thinks about unless something goes wrong. Boxes came in, boxes went out, and in between, a lot of tired people stared at spreadsheets. I had been there almost 6 years when everything happened. The office had 2 floors, but most of us worked on the second floor in a long open room with low gray cubicles. The managers had glass offices along the wall. Human resources was near the elevator. Accounting sat in the back corner beside a window that looked down over the loading bays. The carpet was old and had worn paths where people walked every day. The break room always smelled like burnt coffee and microwave soup. The fluorescent lights buzzed when the building got quiet. It was boring, which was why people stayed. Boring can feel safe when your life outside work is not. My desk was between a woman named Simone and a man named Arthur. Simone had 2 kids, drank tea from a thermos, and kept a little calendar full of school events beside her keyboard. Arthur was in his late 50s, divorced, and wore the same tan windbreaker almost every day no matter the weather. He made dry jokes and kept hard candy in his drawer. I liked both of them. The person I did not understand was Colin Mercer. Colin worked in returns processing. His cubicle was 2 rows away from mine, close enough that I heard him on the phone sometimes, but not close enough that we spoke much. He was 38 or 39, average height, thin but not weak-looking. He had pale skin that seemed almost gray under the office lights, and straight dark hair he combed flat. His clothes were always neat. White shirts, dark slacks, brown belt, polished shoes. He packed the same kind of lunch in a black plastic container and ate at his desk with a paper towel folded beside the keyboard. He did not seem scary at first. He seemed quiet. Some quiet people make you feel like they are comfortable with silence. Colin was not like that. With him, it felt more like the silence was something he used to keep people out. When you said good morning, he said it back without looking up. When you asked if he wanted to join the fantasy football pool or the holiday potluck, he gave a small smile and said no thanks. He never talked about family. He never mentioned plans. I never saw a picture on his desk, not even a calendar. He had 1 company-issued pen cup, 1 stapler, 1 little stack of sticky notes, and nothing else. He did his work well enough. That was what everyone said later, and it was true. He was not flashy or ambitious. He did not volunteer for projects. He did not cause drama. If a return claim was missing a signature or a serial number did not match, Colin caught it. He had a reputation for being careful. Careful is not always good. The first thing that seemed wrong happened with Megan Ellis. Megan was 26 and worked in customer service. She was loud in the way people are loud when they are trying to keep themselves cheerful. She laughed a lot, wore bright sweaters, and decorated her cubicle for every holiday. In December, she strung little battery lights around her monitor. In March, she put paper shamrocks on the wall. She called everyone babe, even Arthur, who pretended to hate it. Colin hated her. I do not know if hate is the right word for what I saw at first. It might have been resentment. It might have been disgust. But when Megan walked by, Colin went still. Not stiff exactly. More like his body stopped pretending to be normal. Megan teased him one afternoon during a staff meeting because he had answered a question from Martin, our operations manager, with one word. Martin had asked whether returns volume looked stable. Colin said yes. Megan leaned over to her friend Bridget and whispered, louder than she meant to, that Colin should do audiobooks because he gave people so much to work with. A few people laughed. Not loudly. Just the little office laugh people make when they are bored and grateful for anything. Colin smiled with his mouth closed. I remember that smile because it did not end when everyone stopped laughing. He kept it while Martin talked about shipment delays and quarterly numbers. He kept it when Megan forgot about him and started checking her phone under the table. His eyes stayed on the back of her head. After the meeting, I saw him at the copy machine. He was standing there with both hands flat on the edge, waiting for nothing. The machine was not running. The screen was dark. I said, "You all right?" He looked at me like I had opened a door I should not have known about. Then he blinked and said, "Fine." I told myself he was embarrassed. People get embarrassed. They hold grudges over small things. Offices are full of people holding grudges over small things. A week later, Megan found a dead mouse in her desk drawer. Not in a trap, not dried out or old. It was fresh enough that there was still a wet shine around its nose and mouth. She screamed when she opened the drawer for a pack of gum. Everyone looked up. Chairs rolled back. A few people hurried over. And then the smell hit. I did not go close at first. I saw Megan standing with both hands over her mouth while Bridget rubbed her shoulder. Arthur went to get paper towels. Martin came out of his office annoyed, then concerned, then angry. Someone called maintenance. Colin stayed seated. I could see the side of his face over the cubicle wall. He was typing. Slow, steady, eyes on the screen. Later, people blamed the building. The warehouse had mice sometimes. Maintenance said it must have gotten into the drawer and died there. But that did not make sense to me. The drawer was closed. Megan kept snacks in another drawer and none of them had been chewed. There were no droppings, no torn paper. At lunch, Megan stood in the break room telling people she might quit if pest control did not come out. She was trying to laugh about it, but she looked pale. Colin walked in while she was talking. The room got quieter, not because anyone suspected him, but because he always made the room a little quieter. Megan said, "Colin, can you believe a mouse died in my drawer?" He opened the refrigerator and took out his black container. "I heard," he said. "That's so disgusting. Like, why me?" He turned and looked at her. "Things go where there's food," he said. Megan's face changed. It was only for a second. She glanced down at herself, then at Bridget, then laughed in a sharp way. "Wow. Okay." Colin walked out without another word. Bridget called him an asshole once he was gone. Simone said he probably meant the granola bars. I said nothing. I should have said something. I do not know to who. I do not know what I would have said. There is a man here who says strange things and looks at people too long. That does not sound like danger. It sounds like every office in America. The next month, the company announced a software change. We were moving from an older returns and invoice platform to a cloud system that promised better tracking and fewer manual approvals. Anyone who has worked in an office knows what that means. It means everyone gets more work. Nobody understands the new screens, and management says it will be better after the transition. They chose me, Simone, Arthur, Megan, Colin, and a warehouse supervisor named Javier to be on the transition team. We had to stay late 2 nights a week for training and testing. Martin was in charge, but he usually left early and said to email him notes. Those late nights were the first time I spent real time around Colin. The office felt different after most people left. During the day, sound bounced around. Phones, printers, people talking over cubicle walls, wheels on chairs, the elevator bell. After closing, all that went away, and the building seemed too large for the few of us inside it. You could hear the vents, the metal roof creak, the warehouse doors opening below when second shift loaded trucks. We sat in the conference room with laptops and cold coffee, clicking through test orders. Megan complained the most, but she also brought snacks. Javier was easygoing and kept making jokes about how the new system was designed by people who had never processed a return in their lives. Simone took careful notes. Arthur asked questions that made the trainer nervous. Colin sat at the far end of the table. He knew the answers before the rest of us. He caught problems before the trainer did. But he never sounded proud. If someone made a mistake, he corrected them in the flattest voice possible. No, that's not where it goes. You skipped the disposal field. That claim will fail. It started wearing on Megan. She was not stupid, but she learned by talking things through, and Colin treated every question like proof she did not belong there. One Thursday evening, after she entered the wrong return code twice, he said, "You should slow down before you create more work for other people." Megan stared at him. "I am trying to learn the same as everyone else. You're making the same mistakes. Because the system sucks." "No," he said, "because you don't listen." The room went quiet. Javier tried to smooth it over. "We're all tired. Let's take 5. Megan pushed back her chair and went into the hall. Bridget was not on the team, so Megan did not have her usual person to talk to. I got up and followed her because I could see she was trying not to cry. She was by the vending machines, digging through her purse for change with shaking hands. "Forget him," I said. She laughed once, hard and short. "I hate that guy. He's just like that." "No, he isn't just like that. He's wrong inside." I asked what she meant. She looked down the hall toward the conference room. "Last week I dropped my badge in the parking lot. I came back after dinner because I thought maybe it was by my car. He was outside by the dumpsters." "Colin?" "Yeah, just standing there." "Smoking?" "He doesn't smoke." "What was he doing?" She shook her head. "Watching the side door." I asked if he'd seen my badge and he said no. Then he said I should be more careful with things that let people in. That made my stomach feel tight, but I still tried to be reasonable. Maybe he meant security. He had my badge. I waited. I found it the next morning clipped to my chair, not on my desk. clipped underneath the chair where the metal bar is. I had to move the chair to plug in my phone, and it was there. Did you tell anyone? And say what? That I lost my badge and then found it? She wiped under one eye with her finger. I know how it sounds. It sounded bad to me, but not bad enough. That was the problem with all of it. Every single thing sounded like something you could explain if you did not want to look too hard. We went back into the room. Colin did not look up. After training ended that night, I walked to the parking lot with Megan and Javier. Colin left after us, carrying his laptop bag in one hand. His car was an old silver Honda parked far from the door under a broken light. Megan noticed him too. See? She said under her breath. He parks where nobody can see him. Javier told her not to let Colin get in her head. Then he offered to walk her to her car on late nights. She said yes, but she rolled her eyes like it was silly. 2 weeks later, Javier was dead. The news said it was an accident at first. He worked second shift in the warehouse and came in early some days to handle receiving. He was found behind the loading area, pinned between a forklift and a concrete barrier. The forklift had rolled or lurched forward. That was the story going around before the police arrived. A bad break. A mistake. A man in the wrong place. I came in that morning and saw 2 police cars by the warehouse entrance. People stood near the front desk, speaking softly. There is a certain tone people use when something terrible has happened at work. It is part whisper, part excitement, part shame at the excitement. Simone grabbed my arm before I reached my desk. It's Javier, she said. What happened? I don't know. They said there was an accident. Martin gathered everyone around the sales floor an hour later. He looked sick. He said Javier had passed away due to a workplace incident and that counselors would be available. He said the warehouse would be closed for the day. He said we were a family. I looked at Colin when Martin said that. He stood near the back with his hands clasped in front of him. His face was blank. Not sad, not shocked. Blank in a way that felt practiced. The police stayed for hours. They spoke to warehouse staff first, then managers, then some of us from the transition team because Javier had been working late with us the night before. I told a detective named Bishop that Javier left the conference room around the same time as me and Megan. He seemed normal. He joked about needing a drink and said he would see us Monday. Anyone have issues with him? Detective Bishop asked. No, I said. Everyone liked Javier. Any arguments lately? I thought about Colin correcting Megan and Javier stepping in. Not with Javier, I said. The detective looked at me longer than I liked. But with someone else? It was just work stress. Tell me anyway. So I did. I told him Colin had snapped at Megan. I told him Javier told everyone to take a break. Even while I said it, I felt foolish. It sounded too small to matter beside a dead man crushed behind the building. Detective Bishop wrote it down. Who is Colin? I pointed him out through the conference room glass. Colin was back at his desk. Not working, just sitting. Bishop nodded once. That afternoon, rumors spread fast. Someone said the forklift was in neutral. Someone else said the key had been left in it, which was against policy. A warehouse guy named Russell said the brake had been checked that week and was fine. Another person said Javier had been kneeling when it happened, like he was looking at something on the ground. The worst rumor came from Arthur. He did not mean to spread it. He came back from the restroom looking gray and told me quietly that one of the warehouse workers said Javier's hands were damaged. What does that mean? I asked. Arthur swallowed, like he tried to stop it. I imagined Javier in the cold morning air, palms out, trying to push back a machine that weighed more than a car. I wished Arthur had not told me. I still see it sometimes. The company brought in grief counselors and safety consultants. We had meetings about forklift keys and loading bay procedures. For a week, everyone moved slowly. Megan cried at her desk. Simone made a card for Javier's wife and passed it around. People wrote the same things people always write when they cannot fix anything. Colin wrote, "Sorry for your loss." His handwriting was small and careful. The police came back twice. They took security footage. That was when we learned something else. The camera over the side lot had been out. Not the whole system. Just that camera. It had gone dark the evening before Javier died and came back online the next morning after the body was found. The IT manager, Nolan, said it looked like a loose connection. Maintenance blamed moisture. Martin told people not to speculate. People speculated anyway. Megan stopped parking near the side entrance. She started coming in through the front, even though it meant walking farther. She also stopped joking with Colin. She stopped saying his name. When he entered a room, she left if she could. I watched Colin notice. That was when my fear became something I carried every day. I wish I could say I went to the police with everything. I did talk to Detective Bishop once more. I called the number on his card and left a message. He called me back that evening while I was making pasta in my apartment. I told him about Megan's badge and the dead mouse. I told him Colin parked under the broken light. I told him the security camera bothered me. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked, "Did you see Mr. Mercer tamper with the camera?" "No." "Did you see him near the forklift?" "No." "Did he threaten Javier?" "Not directly." There was a pause. "I'm not dismissing you," he said. "But right now I need facts I can use." "I understand. Keep your distance from him. If anything else happens, call me." I hung up feeling both relieved and stupid. For a while, nothing else happened. That might have been the worst part. Javier was dead, and the building returned to itself. The phones rang. Orders came in. Invoices got matched. People complained about printer jams. Megan's bright sweaters came back, but she moved differently. She watched reflections in dark windows. She asked me or Simone to go to the restroom with her on late nights. The transition team kept meeting because management did not want the rollout delayed. That sounds heartless, and it was, but it was also normal. Work does not stop for grief unless somebody makes it stop, and nobody in charge wanted to be the one who said revenue could wait. Javier's seat at the conference table stayed empty for one meeting. At the next, Martin removed the chair. Colin seemed calmer after Javier died. I noticed it in small ways. His shoulders were looser. He spoke less sharply. He even brought donuts one Friday and left them in the break room without a note. People thanked the room in general because nobody knew who brought them. I saw him watch Megan take one and nibble it at her desk. I did not eat any. One evening in late October, Simone and I stayed after training to finish reconciling a batch of test invoices. The office was empty except for us, Colin, and Nolan from IT, who was downstairs in the server room. Megan had gone home early because she said she felt sick. Arthur had left at 5 for a dentist appointment. A storm had moved in, heavy rain hitting the windows and making the parking lot shine under the lamps. The warehouse crew had finished early because several trucks were delayed. It was the quietest I had ever heard the building. Simone was at her desk, typing with one hand and eating pretzels with the other. I was scanning a stack of packing slips. Colin was somewhere behind us, but I had not seen him for maybe 20 minutes. The lights flickered once. Simone looked up. "Don't you dare," she said to the ceiling. They steadied. A few minutes later, my desk phone rang. That alone startled me. Nobody called desk phones after hours except the warehouse, and the warehouse had gone home. I picked up. "Accounts payable. This is Tessa." For a second there was only a wet, airy sound. Then someone whispered, "Basement." I froze. "Hello?" The line clicked dead. Simone looked over the cubicle wall. "Who was that?" "I don't know." "What did they want?" "They said basement." She frowned. "Was it Nolan?" "Maybe." The basement was not really a basement. It was a lower service level under part of the building, mostly storage, old files, water heater, electrical panels, and the server room. Most employees never went down there. You needed a keycard for the stairwell door. Simone checked the office chat. Nolan had sent a message 15 minutes earlier saying he was rebooting a switch. He had not answered a later question from Martin. "Call him," she said. I called his extension. No answer. Simone called his cell. It rang until voicemail. We sat there listening to the rain. "I'm going down," I said. Simone's eyes widened. "No, you're not." "What if he fell? Then we call someone. We don't even know if it was him." Exactly. She was right. We should have left the building and called the police, or at least Martin. But there is a pressure in offices to handle things internally, even strange things. You do not want to be dramatic. You do not want to be the person who calls emergency services because the IT guy missed a phone call. So we compromised in the worst possible way. We decided to go together, check from the stairwell, and leave if anything felt wrong. I took my phone. Simone took a heavy metal ruler from her drawer like that would help. The second floor was dim because half the lights were on motion sensors and had shut off. They blinked awake as we walked, one section at a time. The hallway to the service stairs smelled faintly of wet cardboard. Water ran down the outside of the windows in sheets. At the stairwell door, Simone whispered, "This is stupid." I know. I scanned my badge. The lock clicked. The stairwell was concrete and colder than the office. The sound changed in there. The rain became a dull hiss. Our shoes made flat smacks on the steps. Simone held the ruler at her side, her knuckles tight. At the bottom, the service hallway stretched left and right. The overhead lights were on, but one near the storage room buzzed and flickered. The server room door was halfway open. "Nolan?" I called. No answer. Simone touched my sleeve. "Tessa." There was something on the floor near the server room. At first I thought it was a drop jacket. Then I saw a hand. Nolan was lying on his side with his back against the wall. His glasses were broken beside him. A red smear ran from his hairline down across his ear and into the collar of his shirt. His mouth was open. His eyes were not looking at anything. Simone made a sound I had never heard from another person, like her breath had snagged on a hook. I grabbed her and pulled her back. She almost fell. The ruler clattered on the floor. We ran upstairs. I do not remember deciding to run. My body decided. The stairwell door slammed behind us, and we kept going through the second-floor hall toward the elevators. Colin stepped out from the break room. He was holding a mug. We stopped so hard Simone bumped into me. "What happened?" he asked. I could not speak. Simone said, "Nolan is hurt." Colin looked toward the stairwell. "Where?" "Downstairs," she said. "There's blood." He set the mug on the hallway table. "Did you call emergency services?" I had my phone in my hand. I looked down and saw I had not dialed. Then the lights went out. Not all at once. The hall lights snapped off, then the office behind us, then the exit sign above the stairwell flickered and stayed red. Emergency lights came on in dull patches along the floor. Simone whispered, "No." Colin did not move. I could barely see his face in the red light. My phone had no signal. That happened sometimes inside the building, but not usually near the front. Simone checked hers and swore. "Landline," Colin said. His voice was calm. Too calm. We started toward reception because there was a phone at the front desk. Colin walked behind us. I wanted him in front where I could see him, but I was too scared to say it. The office in emergency lighting looked unfamiliar. Cubicles became black blocks. The glass offices reflected our shapes back at us. Rain hammered the roof. Somewhere below, a door banged once, maybe from the wind, maybe not. At reception, Simone picked up the phone. No dial tone. She slammed it down. "Nothing." Colin said, "Power outage may have affected the phones." "That doesn't happen," I said. He looked at me. I backed toward the front doors. They were glass double doors with a card reader and a crash bar. I pushed the bar. The door did not open. For a second, my mind refused to accept that. I pushed again harder. The metal bar clanked, but the lock held. "They fail secure," Colin said. I turned on him. Why would they fail secure from the inside? He did not answer. Simone started crying then, quietly, with one hand over her mouth. She was not falling apart. She was trying to keep it inside because her kids were at home, and because she was the kind of person who still thought being controlled could save you. I pulled the fire alarm. Nothing happened. No siren, no flashing lights, just the plastic handle down and the dead, stupid silence after. Colin watched me do it. "You need to stop," he said. I knew then. I did not know how much, but I knew enough. "What did you do?" I asked. Simone looked at him, then at me. Colin tilted his head. "I haven't done anything." The front lobby was lit by lightning for a moment, bright and white. I saw his shoes. There was a dark spot on the left one near the sole. Blood dries darker than people think. Under bad light, it can look like mud. Simone saw it too. She bolted. She ran back into the office between the cubicles toward the accounting area. I went after her because leaving her was not a thought I could live with yet. Behind us, Colin sighed. not a loud sigh. More like he was disappointed we had made him hurry. We cut through the rows of desks. Simone knocked over a chair. I heard Colin walking, not running. That was worse. If he had run, maybe he would have seemed human. Our department had a small file room with a solid wood door and a lock that barely worked. Simone reached it first, yanked it open, and pulled me inside. We shut the door and turned the cheap thumb lock. Inside it smelled like paper, dust, and toner. File boxes were stacked to the ceiling. There was no window. I held my phone up. Still no signal. Simone whispered, "He killed Nolan." "I know." "And Javier." I nodded, though she could barely see me. We moved boxes in front of the door as quietly as possible. My hands shook so badly I dropped one. The sound seemed huge. Footsteps passed outside. Simone grabbed my wrist. The footsteps stopped. A long minute went by. I could hear my own breath and Simone's breath in the rain outside the building, distant through layers of wall. Colin spoke from the other side of the door. "Tessa." My name in his voice made my skin tighten. He said, "You should have gone home." Simone's grip hurt. I did not answer. "I tried to keep you out of it," he said. The door handle moved. Once. Slowly. Then it stopped against the lock. "You and Simone were not part of the problem." Simone closed her eyes. He tapped the door with something hard. Not a rhythm. Just testing. Then he walked away. We waited. It could have been 2 minutes or 10. I had no good sense of time. Simone crouched on the floor with her back against a cabinet. I stood near the door, listening. My phone buzzed once in my hand. 1 bar. I almost cried from relief. I dialed emergency services. The call failed. I tried again. Failed. Simone held out her phone. No signal. Mine had 1 bar, then none. I opened a text to Detective Bishop. My fingers stumbled over the screen. At office. Colin Mercer killed Nolan. We are trapped. Power out. Send police. I hit send. The message hung there, unsent. Then, after several seconds, it changed to delivered. I showed Simone. She pressed both hands over her face. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. They're coming." That hope got us moving again. We knew we could not stay in the file room. If Colin decided to break in or set a fire or wait us out, we were stuck. The only exits were the front doors, the stairwell, and a back staircase that led down to the warehouse. The warehouse had roll-up doors and emergency exits. If we could get there, maybe we could get out. The back staircase was across the office, past returns processing, past Colin's desk. We waited until everything sounded quiet. Then we moved the boxes, unlocked the door, and slipped out. The office seemed empty. Emergency lights cast low yellow pools on the carpet. Monitors were black. Someone's desk fan turned slowly for no reason I could understand. Simone kept one hand on my shoulder as we walked bent low through the cubicles. We reached Colin's row. His cubicle looked too neat. In the dim light, I could see his pen cup, his stapler, the black lunch container. His monitor was off. A drawer was open. Simone glanced in and stopped. I followed her eyes. Inside the drawer were badges. Not one or two, a stack of them. Old company badges, visitor badges, a warehouse access card, maybe a dozen. Some had names I knew from people who had quit years earlier. Megan's old badge was there too, the one she had lost. Beside them was a small coil of clear tubing, a roll of tape, and several folded plastic bags. There was also a knife, not huge, not theatrical, just a utility knife with a fresh blade extended. I pulled Simone away. We moved faster after that. At the end of the row, we heard a sound from the break room, a chair scraping tile. Simone froze. A woman moaned. It was soft, muffled, but it was a woman. Megan. I knew it before Simone mouthed her name. For a second I wanted to keep going. I hate admitting that, but it is true. The back stairs were close. The police might already be on the way. Megan might have been beyond help. Those were the thoughts that came, quick and ugly. Because fear strips you down to what you can survive. Then Megan moaned again. Simone moved first. That shamed me into following. The break room was lit by the red exit sign above the inner door. Tables sat in crooked rows. Someone had left a bag of chips on the counter. The refrigerator hummed on emergency power, or maybe it was another sound behind it. Megan was tied to a chair near the vending machines. At first, I could not understand what I was seeing. Her head hung forward. Her hair covered her face. Silver duct tape wrapped around her wrists and the chair arms. More tape crossed her ankles. Her sweater was torn at the shoulder. There was blood on her jeans and on the floor beneath the chair. Simone ran to her. Megan, Megan, can you hear me? Megan lifted her head a little. Her face was swollen on one side. Tape covered her mouth. Her eyes found us and went wide with panic. I looked around for Colin. The room was empty. Simone tried to peel the tape from Megan's wrists. It was wrapped too tight. I grabbed a plastic knife from a drawer, then saw it would be useless. My mind flashed to the utility knife in Colin's cubicle, but I could not go back for it. There was a pair of scissors in a mug by the microwave. I took them and started cutting. Megan made a muffled sound. She kept shaking her head. "What?" Simone whispered. "What is it?" Megan looked down. There was a phone taped under the chair. No, not a phone. A small black device with wires leading under the seat and around one chair leg. I did not know what it was. I still do not know exactly. It may have been a battery pack. It may have been part of the security system. It may have been fake. I only know what Colin wanted us to believe. Simone saw it and stopped cutting. Megan sobbed through the tape. The break room door closed behind us. Colin stood there holding the utility knife. He had taken off his tie. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. There was blood on his cuff, more than I had seen on his shoe. His hair had come loose across his forehead, and that small change made him look like a stranger wearing Colin's face badly. "Move away from her," he said. Simone stood between him and Megan. "Please," she said. "Colin, whatever this is, please don't." He looked annoyed, not excited. "You always say please when you run out of useful things." I grabbed a chair and shoved it toward him. It hit a table and toppled, not even close to stopping him. Simone picked up the mug with the scissors and threw it. It hit his shoulder. He flinched. I ran at him then. It was not brave. It was panic. I lowered my shoulder and slammed into him near the door. We hit the wall together. The knife cut my upper arm. It felt like heat at first, then wetness. Colin grunted and grabbed my hair. He pulled hard enough that I saw white spots. Simone hit him from the side with the metal coffee pot. It made a dull sound against his head. He let go of me. "Run," Simone shouted. I stumbled backward. Megan screamed through the tape. Simone swung the coffee pot again, but Colin caught her wrist. He moved fast then, faster than I expected. He twisted her arm and drove the knife into her neck. I saw it go in. I saw Simone's face change from fear to surprise, like she had been slapped. Blood came out in a strong pulse over Colin's hand and down the front of her blouse. He pulled the blade free and she dropped to her knees. She tried to cover the wound, but blood pushed through her fingers. Her mouth opened and closed without words. I think I screamed. I do not remember hearing it. Megan jerked against the chair so hard it rocked. Colin looked down at Simone while she fell onto her side. He watched her for a few seconds, breathing through his nose. Then he looked at me. I ran. I left Megan. I left Simone. I ran through the office with blood running down my arm and my shoes slipping on the carpet. Behind me, Megan made a sound that followed me, high and trapped and human. I reached the back staircase and slammed my badge against the reader. Nothing happened. I tried again. The reader stayed dark. I pulled the door. Locked. The emergency release box beside it had a plastic cover. I broke it with my elbow and yanked the handle. The alarm did not sound, but the door opened. The stairwell down to the warehouse was black. I went anyway. The steps were metal and narrow. My left hand slid along the rail, leaving blood. Halfway down, I heard a noise above me. The door opening. I did not look back. At the bottom, I pushed through another door into the warehouse. The space was huge and mostly dark, lit only by emergency strips and the faint gray light from high windows. Tall racks rose on both sides, stacked with boxes of gloves, tubing, braces, walkers, cartons of disposable gowns. The concrete floor smelled like dust, plastic, and old oil. I knew the warehouse only from occasional inventory checks. It was a maze to me. Aisles ran long and straight, then broke into cross aisles. Forklifts sat charging near the far wall. The loading bays were straight ahead somewhere, but in the dark it was hard to tell distance. I heard the stairwell door close behind me. Colin did not call out. That silence made me move faster. I ducked into an aisle and crouched behind stacked boxes of adult diapers. My arm throbbed. Blood had soaked my sleeve and dripped from my fingers. I pressed my hand over the cut and bit the inside of my cheek to stay quiet. Footsteps entered the warehouse. Slow. Controlled. He knew the building better than I did. He knew the exits. He knew I was hurt. I took out my phone. The screen was cracked from when I fell against the break room wall, but it still worked. No signal. The message to Bishop showed delivered. Nothing else. I typed another message anyway. Warehouse. He killed Simone. Megan tied in break room. I am hiding. It did not send. A forklift beeped somewhere to my right. My breath stopped. The sound came again. The short backup beep forklifts make when they move in reverse. Then headlights flashed at the end of the aisle, bright white against cardboard. He had turned one on. I crawled backward, keeping low. The concrete was cold through my pants. My hand slipped in my own blood. I had a weird, useless thought that we would never get the stain out of the floor. The forklift rolled past the end of the aisle, slow. Its lights swept over the boxes above me. I saw Colin through a gap, seated at the controls, face washed pale by the dashboard glow. He was not smiling. He looked like a man doing inventory. When he passed, I moved. I cut through 2 aisles, trying to remember the layout. The loading bays had red release handles. The side emergency door had a push bar and opened to the employee lot. If the locks were not disabled there too, I could get out. As I neared the far wall, I saw a green emergency exit sign glowing above a door. I almost ran straight for it. Then I saw Arthur. He was sitting on the floor beside the door with his legs out in front of him. For one stupid second, I thought he was resting. Then I saw his head was tilted too far to one side, and his tan windbreaker was dark across the chest. Arthur had come back, maybe from his dentist appointment. Maybe he forgot something. Maybe Colin had called him. I will never know. His glasses were still on. One lens was cracked. His mouth was open slightly, and there was blood in his mustache. The exit door behind him had a chain wrapped through the push bar and around a pipe. I backed away with one hand over my mouth. A box fell somewhere behind me, not near the forklift. Closer. Colin was off the forklift. I turned and ran along the wall, away from Arthur, away from the chain door. I reached the loading bays and grabbed the release handle on the nearest roll-up door. It moved a few inches, then jammed. I pulled harder. Something held it from outside or above. The next door was the same. At the third bay, a smaller personnel door sat beside the ramp. It had a crash bar. I pushed. It opened. Cold rain blew in. I stumbled outside onto the loading dock. For one second, I thought I was free. Then I saw the fence gate at the end of the dock was chained shut, and beyond it the employee lot was empty, except for a few cars shining wet under broken lights. My car was on the other side of the building. The dock was 10 or 12 feet above the pavement, with stairs leading down near the gate. I ran to the stairs. A shape moved below. Colin came out from under the dock awning, already there, like he had known which door I would find. He held something in his right hand. Not the knife. A tire iron or pry bar. Rain slicked his hair flat against his head. I stopped at the top of the stairs. He looked up at me. "You're making this worse," he said. It was such an ordinary thing to say, like I had missed a deadline or put a file in the wrong spot. I backed away. He started up the stairs. There was nowhere to go but back inside. I ran through the personnel door and slammed it behind me. There was no lock on my side. I dragged a pallet jack in front of it, but my injured arm barely worked. The door hit the jack once, hard, then again. Metal scraped concrete. I fled into the warehouse. I do not know how long I hid after that. My memory breaks into pieces. I remember crouching inside an empty shipping crate with the lid pulled half closed. I remember hearing Colin move pallets with the forklift, blocking aisles, changing the warehouse around me. I remember my phone lighting up with one bar, then going dark before I could call. I remember wrapping my cardigan around my arm and tightening it with my teeth. I remember finding Russell from the warehouse. He was in the cage where they kept high-value equipment, slumped against the wire mesh. There was a zip tie around his neck, pulled so deep into the skin that it looked like it belonged there. His hands were bound behind him with more ties. His face was purple and swollen, his eyes half open. A packing slip was taped to his chest. I could not read all of it in the dark. I only saw one line printed in Colin's small handwriting. Careless handling causes loss. That was when I vomited. I tried to be quiet, but I could not. My body folded around the sound. When I finished, I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and listened. Nothing. Then, from somewhere across the warehouse, Megan screamed. Not muffled this time. He had taken the tape off her mouth. She screamed my name. "Tessa, please, Tessa." I pressed my palms to my ears. I still heard her. "Tessa, help me." Then she started begging Colin. She said she was sorry. She said she would quit. She said he could have whatever he wanted. Her voice cracked and slid into sobbing. I knew he was using her to pull me out. I knew it. But knowing that did not make me able to sit there while she begged. I found a metal pipe near a maintenance cart and held it in both hands. My left arm screamed when I lifted it. I moved toward the sound, step by step, through the racks. Megan was near the center aisle. Colin had dragged her chair from the break room all the way down, or maybe tied her to another chair. There was a work light on the floor facing her, making everything around it black. Her face was wet with tears and blood. The tape was gone from her mouth, but strips of it clung to her cheeks. One of her hands hung loose because she had torn skin getting partly free. Her wrist looked raw and wrong. Colin stood behind her with one hand on the chair back. "Come out," he said. I stayed behind a rack. Megan saw movement and looked toward me. For half a second, relief crossed her face. Then she understood I was not coming straight in. "Run," she mouthed. Colin leaned down close to her ear. "She won't." He was right. Not because I was brave. Because I could not leave another person twice. I stepped into the aisle holding the pipe. Colin looked at it, then at me. "That won't help." "Why are you doing this?" I asked. It was a stupid question. I asked because people ask that when they need a second to think. He seemed to consider whether to answer. "They laugh," he said. Megan cried harder. "Everyone laughs," he said. "They make a mess and expect other people to clean it. They take things. They lose things. They touch what isn't theirs. Then they act surprised when there is a cost. That's not why you killed Javier." His jaw moved. "Javier touched me," he said. I stared at him. "At the meeting," Colin said. He put his hand on my shoulder and told me to take a breath. Like I was a child. Like he had permission. I remembered Javier doing that. A quick, calming gesture. Nothing more. Colin had turned his head away at the time. I had forgotten it. "He was kind to you," I said. Colin's face hardened. "No, he handled me." There was no argument that could reach him. I saw that clearly. Whatever lived inside Colin had built its own rules, and every normal act had been turned into an offense. Megan whispered. I'm sorry. Colin straightened. You are sorry because you're bleeding. He raised the knife. I threw the pipe. It hit him in the face. Not hard enough to knock him down, but enough to make him stagger. I ran at him. Megan shoved backward at the same time, throwing her weight against the chair. The chair tipped. Colin grabbed for it, missed, and I hit him low. We fell together. The floor knocked the air out of me. The knife skittered away. I clawed at his face. He punched me in the ribs, then the mouth. Pain flashed through my jaw. Megan screamed and kicked, still tied to the chair. I reached for the knife, but Colin caught my injured arm and squeezed the cut. I blacked out for a second. Not fully. The world narrowed to a gray tunnel and came back with his face above mine. He smelled like rain, sweat, and pennies. He wrapped both hands around my throat. I dug my nails into his wrists. I kicked. My heel hit the floor uselessly. The warehouse lights blurred. I heard Megan yelling, heard my own throat make small wet clicks. Then Colin jerked sideways. Megan had gotten one leg free and kicked him in the head. His grip loosened. I rolled away, coughing. Megan kicked again. He turned on her with a sound I cannot forget. Not rage exactly. More like disgust. He grabbed her by the hair and yanked her in the chair upright. She screamed. I crawled toward the knife. Colin saw me. He slammed Megan's head against the edge of a metal packing table. The sound was flat and final. Her body went loose. He did it again. I reached the knife. He did it a third time. I got to my feet with the knife in my right hand. Colin let Megan fall. She landed partly under the chair, twisted in the tape. Blood spread under her head in a dark pool. He turned toward me. I do not remember deciding to stab him. I remember his hands coming up and my arm moving. The blade went into his side, below the ribs. He made a breathy sound. I pulled it out and stabbed again, higher. He hit me across the face so hard I fell into the packing table. The knife stayed in my hand. He looked down at the blood spreading across his shirt. For the first time all night, Colin seemed surprised. Then he smiled. It was small and closed-mouthed, the same smile from the staff meeting when Megan had made her joke. He backed away from me. I thought he would run. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a key ring. He tossed it down the aisle. The keys slid across the concrete and disappeared under a rack. Then he walked into the dark between the pallets. I went after the keys because escape mattered more than finishing him. My hands were slick. I dropped to my knees and reached under the rack, sweeping through dust and shrink-wrap scraps. My fingers touched metal. I pulled the ring out. There were too many keys. Door keys, cabinet keys, forklift keys, little brass ones, big silver ones. I did not know which opened what. My phone vibrated. For 1 second, I thought it was the police calling. It was a text from Detective Bishop. "Where are you now?" I tried to answer, but my fingers left blood on the screen and the letters came wrong. Warehouse, loading dock, people dead. He is hurt. This time it sent. A reply came quickly. Officers en route. Stay hidden if safe. I laughed when I read that. A small broken laugh that hurt my throat. Stay hidden if safe. There was no safe place in that building. I moved toward the loading dock doors again. holding the keys and the knife. Megan was behind me. I did not look at her. I could not. At the first personnel door, the pallet jack was still in front of it. I moved it enough to squeeze through. Outside, rain came down hard. The fenced gate was still chained. I tried 3 keys, then 4. None worked. Behind me, inside the warehouse, something crashed. I tried another key. It slid into the padlock but would not turn. My hands shook. I forced myself to breathe. I tried the next key. The lock opened. I pulled the chain free and pushed the gate. A floodlight snapped on. I froze. The light came from the far corner of the lot near the dumpsters. Colin stood there, one hand pressed to his side. In the other hand, he held a gun. I had never seen the gun before. I do not know where he kept it. Maybe in his car. Maybe in his desk. Maybe he had taken it from Arthur or someone else. It was small and black and very real. He aimed it at me. The first shot hit the gate near my shoulder. Metal sparked. I dropped and crawled through the opening. The second shot went over me. I ran down the slick pavement between parked delivery trucks. Another shot cracked behind me. Pain hit my left leg and I fell hard. My chin struck the ground. For a second, I did not know what had happened. Then I tried to stand and my leg would not take weight. I dragged myself behind a truck tire. Rain ran into my eyes. My mouth tasted like blood and grit. Somewhere far off, sirens wailed. I could hear them over the rain now. Real sirens. Coming closer. Colin walked toward me. He was not steady. He leaned against the trucks as he came, leaving blood on the white panels. The gun hung at his side. I held the knife, but my hand had almost no strength. The sirens got louder. Colin stopped a few yards away. He looked past me toward the road, then back at me. For a moment his face changed. Not remorse, not fear, calculation. He raised the gun. A police car turned into the far driveway, lights flashing red and blue across the wet lot. Colin lowered the gun and fired once toward the car. The windshield cracked. The car swerved and stopped. Doors opened. Officers shouted. Colin stepped behind the delivery truck, grabbed me under the arms and hauled me up. I tried to stab him. The knife slipped from my hand. He pressed the gun under my jaw. "Walk," he said. I could not walk. My leg dragged, but he held me upright and moved backward with me toward the warehouse gate. Officers shouted for him to drop the weapon. He kept me between them and himself. I saw Detective Bishop arrive in another car. He got out with his gun drawn. Even from a distance, I recognized his shape, his coat, the way he moved. "Colin," he called. "Let her go." Colin backed through the gate with me. I wanted to tell them to shoot. I tried to say it. The gun under my jaw pressed harder, and all that came out was a choking sound. Bishop kept talking. Calm voice, slow words, promises about medical help, about nobody else needing to get hurt. Colin did not answer. He pulled me into the warehouse. The gate swung shut behind us. Once we were inside, he shoved me to the floor. I landed on my injured leg and almost passed out from the pain. He closed the personnel door and jammed something through the handle. Police pounded on the outside a moment later. Colin looked down at me. His shirt was soaked with blood. His face had gone pale in a different way now. He was dying. I knew it. He knew it too. He crouched near me, breathing hard. "You should have minded your own work," he said. Then he put the gun in his mouth. I closed my eyes. The shot was so loud inside the warehouse that it seemed to split the air. When I opened my eyes, Colin was on his back a few feet away. I will not describe his face. I still see it when I wake up, and nobody needs that picture unless they already have it. The police broke in soon after. They found me on the floor beside him, laughing and crying and trying to crawl away from blood that was already under my knees. That should be the end of it. For most people it is. They hear the story and think it ended when Colin died. The bad man killed people, the police came, and the survivor was carried out. That is the shape people want. It makes sense. It gives the terror an edge, a place where it stops. But it did not stop there. I spent 9 days in the hospital. The cut on my arm needed stitches. The bullet had gone through the outside of my calf without hitting bone, which the doctors said was lucky. My throat was bruised. 2 ribs were cracked. I had a concussion and several loose teeth. Police came in and out. Detectives asked questions. I answered what I could. Sometimes I slept through interviews. Sometimes I woke up crying because I thought I heard Megan calling my name from the hallway. The final count was worse than the news first reported. Javier, Nolan, Simone, Megan, Arthur, Russell, and a night cleaner named Elena, who had been found in a supply closet on the first floor. I had not even known she was in the building that night. She had worked there for years. She had 3 grandchildren. Colin had strangled her with the cord from a floor buffer and folded her hands over her chest like he was setting up a body for a funeral. They found Martin too. He was alive, barely, locked in his office closet with a plastic bag taped over his head and a small hole cut near the mouth so he could breathe for a while. Colin had beaten him and left him there early in the evening. Martin survived, but he never came back to work. None of us did, really. The company closed the office for 3 months, then reopened under another name after a sale. I heard they replaced the carpet. The news wanted reasons. Everybody wanted reasons. They went through Colin's house and found notebooks, not diaries in the emotional sense. Logs, lists of offenses, dates, names, actions, corrections needed. Megan laughing in meeting, Javier touching shoulder, Simone humming during work, Arthur taking candy from dish without asking, Nolan denying support ticket, Elena moving trash can, Martin using phrase team player. My name appeared too. Tessa left mug in sink. Tessa asked personal question at copier. Tessa watches too much. There were pages of it, years of it. Some entries went back before I started at the company, with names I did not recognize. He had kept track of everyone, not because they mattered to him as people, but because they had failed some private inspection. Police found tools, badges, copied keys, printed floor plans, old employee schedules, and photos taken from inside the office when nobody knew he was there. My desk, Simone's family calendar, Megan's chair, Javier's truck, Arthur outside a grocery store, Nolan at a gas station, Elena waiting at a bus stop. There were photos of my apartment building. That was the detail I could not get past. I had never told Colin where I lived. Detective Bishop said Colin probably followed me at some point. He said it gently, like gentleness could change the fact. He told me there was no evidence Colin had entered my apartment. He told me to change my locks anyway. I moved instead. For a few months, people treated me like I had escaped something. They brought food. They sent messages. Reporters left cards in my mailbox until Bishop helped make them stop. My mother came to stay with me and slept on the couch even after I told her she could go home. I went to therapy twice a week. I learned words like hypervigilance and survivor guilt. I learned that trauma makes your body feel like a building where all the alarms are stuck on. I also learned that people get tired of your fear before you do. After half a year, the casseroles stopped. Friends stopped asking if I wanted company and started saying it was good that I was getting out more, even when I was not. My mother went home. I got a remote bookkeeping job for a small nonprofit. I worked from a laptop at my kitchen table in a new apartment 2 towns away. I tried to build a small life. I bought heavy curtains. I got 2 locks and a doorbell camera. I stopped drinking coffee after noon because it made my hands shake. I kept the television on for background noise. I learned which floorboards creaked in my new place. I sat with my back to walls in restaurants. I avoided office buildings, loading docks, break rooms, and the smell of burnt coffee. I did not talk about Colin unless I had to. Then, about 11 months after the murders, I received an envelope. It came to my new address. No return address. My name was printed on the front in small block letters. Not typed. Handwritten. I knew before I opened it. People say they know things like that all the time, and maybe they exaggerate. I am not exaggerating. The second I saw the letters, my skin went cold. The handwriting was careful and narrow. Colin's handwriting. I called Detective Bishop before I opened it. He was not assigned to the case anymore, but he still answered. He told me not to touch it more than I already had. He came over with another officer and took it in a paper evidence bag. I sat on my couch while they opened it in my kitchen with gloves. Inside was a single sheet torn from a yellow legal pad. Bishop read it, and his face went still. I asked what it said. He did not want to tell me, but I made him. It said, "Inventory incomplete." That was all. They checked the postmark. It had been mailed 3 days before from a sorting center in Cleveland. Colin had been dead for 11 months. Someone else had mailed it. Bishop tried to reassure me. He said Colin could have prepared envelopes before he died. He said maybe someone found one and mailed it as a cruel joke. He said they would look into it. I wanted to believe him. A week later, another envelope came. This one contained a copy of my old employee badge. Not the real badge. A photocopy, cut out around the edges. Across my face, someone had drawn a thin line in red marker. The police took it. They dusted for prints. Nothing useful. After that, I stayed with my mother for a while. I did not want to, but I was not sleeping. I would sit on the edge of my bed until morning, staring at the door, and then try to work with my brain full of static. Bishop called me with updates that were not updates. No fingerprints. No camera footage from the mailbox area. No suspect. The old case had produced a few disturbed people online who were fascinated with Colin. True crime forums, local weirdos, people who wrote long posts about how maybe he had been framed because they thought every official story was a lie. Any of them could have found my new address. My name had been in older news reports before I got them to stop using it. I deleted my social media. I changed my number. I moved again. The third envelope found me anyway. This one was waiting inside my apartment. I came home from the grocery store and knew something was wrong before I saw it. The door was locked. The camera had no alert. Nothing looked broken, but the air inside felt disturbed. That is the only way I can describe it. The apartment had the same furniture and the same faint smell of laundry soap, but it was not empty in the way I had left it. The envelope sat on my kitchen table. My name was written on it. I dropped the grocery bags and backed out into the hall. I called the police from the stairwell. While I waited, I kept looking at my apartment door, expecting it to open. They searched the place and found no one, no sign of forced entry. The doorbell camera had gone offline for 40 minutes while I was gone because the Wi-Fi had been interrupted. The landlord swore nobody had used a master key. The windows were locked from the inside. Inside the envelope was a photo. It showed me asleep in my bed. I am not going to explain what that did to me, because I do not have words for it that are not too small. On the back, in the same narrow handwriting, someone had written, "Careless people leave doors open." I stopped living alone after that. I moved in with my mother in her small house outside Canton. Bishop helped me file reports, get extra patrols, talk to a victim advocate. He was angry by then. I could hear it in his voice. Not at me. At the fact that Colin was dead and still somehow reaching into my life. They looked again at Colin's records. Phone, email, storage units, old contacts. They found no accomplice, no friend, no close family except an aunt in assisted living who had not seen him in years. His co-workers had known almost nothing about him, which was the most honest thing we could say. Then my mother disappeared. It happened on a Thursday afternoon while I was working in the spare bedroom. She had gone to pick up a prescription and some milk. The pharmacy was 12 minutes away. She did not come back. I called her. No answer. I checked her location through the family app she had insisted on installing for me, and it showed her phone at the pharmacy. I drove there too fast, called Bishop on the way, and found her car parked near the side of the building. Her purse was on the passenger seat. The milk was in the back. Her phone was under the car, smashed. There was no blood. The pharmacy camera showed her walking out with a bag. A dark SUV pulled up near her car. The camera angle did not catch the driver. My mother turned like someone had called her name. Then the SUV blocked the view for less than a minute. When it drove away, she was gone. No one saw anything useful. That was 2 months ago. The police still call it an active missing person investigation. They ask me not to give up hope. They say there is no confirmed connection to Colin Mercer, because saying that out loud would mean admitting the dead man's shadow has a hand they cannot find. I do not sleep much now. I live in a motel under a name that is not mine. Bishop arranged it off the record for a few nights, then a few more, and then I stopped asking how long I could stay. The room smells like bleach and old smoke. The carpet is thin. The heater clicks before it turns on. I keep a chair under the door handle even though I know that only works in movies half the time. I have a cheap laptop, a prepaid phone, and a kitchen knife from a dollar store. I keep the curtains shut. I eat things that do not need cooking. Sometimes I hear people laughing in the rooms beside mine and feel such hatred for them that it scares me. Not because they are doing anything wrong, because they are normal, because they can still be careless. That is the word I cannot get away from. Careless. Colin used it like a sentence. Whoever has been sending the envelopes uses it the same way. And lately I have started catching myself using it too. When the motel clerk leaves the back door propped open while he smokes, I think careless. When a woman at the vending machine lets her little boy run ahead of her down the hall, I think careless. When the housekeeper knocks and then opens my door before I answer, I almost hit her with the knife. And afterward I sit on the bed shaking because for 1 second I understood the shape of Colin's anger from the inside. That may be the worst part. Not the blood. Not the warehouse. Not Megan saying my name. Not Simone falling with her hands at her throat. Not my mother's empty car. The worst part is that terror has started teaching me his language. This morning, there was an envelope under the motel room door. No stamp this time. No postmark. Just my name in those careful block letters. Tessa. I did not call Bishop right away. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at it for a long time. The room was quiet except for traffic outside and the buzz of the sign near the road. I knew I should not touch it. I touched it anyway. Inside was a key card from my old office. Not a photocopy. A real badge. My badge. The one I had turned in to the police after the murders because it had Colin's blood on it, and my blood on it, and God knows who else's. It had been evidence. It should have been in a sealed box somewhere, logged and stored and forgotten. Across the plastic, someone had written in red marker, "Return to work." I called Bishop then. He did not answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I called the police department and asked for him. The woman who answered put me on hold. When she came back, her voice was careful in a way I recognized. Detective Bishop had not reported in that morning. They were sending someone to check on him. I packed what I could carry and left the motel through the bathroom window. That sounds dramatic, but the window was low and stuck halfway open because the frame had swollen from old water damage. I pushed the screen out, dropped my bag first, then climbed through and landed badly on my injured leg. I lay in the wet weeds behind the building with my hand over my mouth, waiting for someone to come around the corner. No one did. The dark SUV was still parked near the ice machine when I crawled along the back wall. It had tinted windows and clean tires, too clean for the muddy lot. I could not see anyone inside. I should have run to the road. I know that. Instead, I went closer. Fear makes you stupid, but it can also make you tired of being chased. I was so tired. Tired of motel rooms. Tired of new names. Tired of checking locks. Tired of wondering what had happened to my mother. I had spent months hiding from a person who might not even have been one person. I wanted a face. I kept low behind the line of parked cars and moved toward the SUV. When I reached the back bumper, I saw the plate was covered with a smear of mud. Not road mud. Someone had wiped it on by hand. The passenger door was unlocked. Inside, the SUV smelled like coffee, cold vinyl, and the faint sourness of someone who had been sleeping in it. There were fast food wrappers on the floor and a gray hoodie balled up in the back seat. I saw a police scanner in the cup holder. Beside it was a manila folder with my name on the tab. Not Tessa. My real full name. I opened the folder. There were photos of me entering the motel. Photos of me at the grocery store. Photos of me standing outside my mother's house weeks before she vanished. There were printed reports too. Police reports, evidence logs, interview notes, copies, but not the kind a stranger could get from the news. At the bottom was a page from Colin's notebook. It was not a copy. I could tell by the yellowed paper and the pressure marks from the pen. It had been torn out rough along the top. There were 3 names on it: Simone, Megan, Tessa. The old names. Before I changed them in my own head. Before I tried to put distance between the person I had been and the person I had become. Beside each name, Colin had written one word. Simone, interfered. Megan, provoked. Tessa, witnessed. Under my name, someone else had added a line in red ink, still witnessing. A phone buzzed in the console. I almost dropped the folder. The screen lit up with an incoming call from a blocked number. I stared at it, then picked it up before I could lose my nerve. For a few seconds there was only breathing. Then a woman said, "You were not supposed to leave the room." Her voice was calm, middle-aged, familiar in a way I could not place. "Who is this?" I asked. She ignored that. "Go back inside." "Where is my mother?" The breathing changed. A small laugh, almost fond. "You still think everything has one center," she said. That was Colin's mistake too. I looked toward the motel office. The clerk was at the front desk, head down, looking at his phone. A truck pulled into the gas station across the street. Life kept moving around me like I was not sitting inside a stranger's car with my hands shaking. "What do you want?" I asked. "To finish the return." I heard those words and understood something I should have understood sooner. This was not a copycat who loved Colin. It was not some lonely person online who had become obsessed with the murders. It was the work. The company had sold the building, changed its name, scrubbed the website, replaced the carpet, and pretended the dead could be separated from the filing system. But Colin had not grown in empty space. He had worked beside people for years. He had collected keys and access cards and schedules. He had moved through weak doors and broken procedures. He had learned where nobody looked because nobody wanted to be responsible for looking. Someone had helped him. Maybe not with the knife in his hand. Maybe not with every death. But someone had opened doors. Someone had erased footage. Someone had touched evidence after the fact. Someone had kept his rules alive because they had their own reasons for wanting people afraid, quiet, and corrected. I thought of the front desk at the old office, the HR hallway, the people who smiled without saying anything, the grief meetings, the sale. The voice said, "Tessa." I went cold. I had not told her that name. Then I recognized the voice. Not fully at first. It came back like a face seen through dirty glass. She had answered phones at the old office before we got the automated system. She had handed out visitor badges and birthday cards. She had known everyone's schedule because everyone walked past her. I remembered her gray bob, her soft sweaters, the peppermint bowl on the reception counter. Patricia Vale. She had retired 3 months before the murders. Everyone had signed a card. I saw her handwriting in my mind. Careful block letters on manila envelopes. Names written on temporary badges. Small, neat, patient. "Patricia," I said. The line went quiet. I did not know if saying her name saved me or killed me faster. "You should not have said that," she said. The scanner in the cup holder crackled. A dispatcher said something about a welfare check at Detective Bishop's address. I got out of the SUV and ran. My leg buckled before I reached the road, but I kept moving. I heard a door slam behind me. I did not look back. I crossed the motel lot, past the office window, and saw the clerk look up too late. I pushed through the front door and shouted for him to call the police. He stood confused. Then the glass behind me exploded. The shot took him in the throat. He fell backward into the rack of brochures, knocking down pamphlets for local wineries and a children's museum. Blood sprayed across the counter, and the little bell people rang when nobody was there. I dropped to the floor. Another shot punched through the door frame. The clerk was making a wet, choking sound behind the counter. I crawled to him, grabbed the phone, and pressed buttons slick with his blood. Dead. Of course it was dead. I looked through the shattered lower part of the window and saw Patricia walking across the lot with a handgun at her side. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Her hair was white now, cut short. She wore a beige raincoat and sensible shoes. She could have been anyone's aunt coming back from church. Behind her, the SUV sat with its passenger door open. I crawled into the back office. There was a cheap desk, a microwave, boxes of motel soap, and a rear door with a deadbolt. I locked it, then dragged a filing cabinet in front of it. My breath came in hard pulls. I could hear the clerk still dying in the lobby. Patricia did not rush. That was what broke something in me. She walked like she had all the time in the world. Colin had moved that way too. Not because they were calm, because they had already decided the ending. The door handle turned. "Tessa," Patricia said through the door. "Open it." I stayed on the floor, holding a pair of scissors I had found on the desk. "You are not being punished for surviving," she said. "You are being corrected for changing the story." I did not answer. "Colin was sloppy at the end," she said. "He made it emotional. He always did. That is why he failed." The filing cabinet jerked as she pushed the door. "You kept telling people he was a monster," she said. "That made it too easy. Monsters are separate. Monsters are rare. Nobody learns anything from monsters." She pushed again. The cabinet scraped an inch. "He was an employee," she said. "He was trained. He was observed. He was useful until he was not. That is the story." I understood then that Patricia did not sound like Colin because she had copied him. He had sounded like her. The door cracked open enough for her to put her hand through with the gun. I drove the scissors down into her wrist. She screamed. The gun fired into the floor. I stabbed again, not thinking, not aiming, just forcing the blades into whatever part of her I could reach. She dropped the gun outside the door. I grabbed it through the gap at the same time she grabbed my hair. For a moment we were both stuck there, the door between us, her hand in my hair, my hand on the gun. She pulled hard. My scalp burned. I kicked the cabinet with my good leg, and it shifted against the door, crushing her forearm. Patricia screamed again. I got the gun. I had never fired one before. I fired through the door. Once. Twice. The sound filled the little room and left me deaf on one side. Patricia let go of my hair. Something heavy hit the hallway floor. I stayed where I was until police arrived. They found the motel clerk dead in the lobby. They found Patricia Vale outside the back office door, alive but bleeding badly from 2 gunshot wounds, and the scissors still stuck through her wrist. She kept asking for her purse. They thought she wanted medication, but when an officer opened it, he found 3 more envelopes, 2 thumb drives, a ring of old company keys, and my mother's driver's license. They found Detective Bishop later that afternoon. He was in his garage, tied to a chair with duct tape over his mouth and a plastic bag over his head. He was alive, barely. Patricia had been careful with the hole, the same way Colin had been with Martin. She had wanted time. My mother was not in Patricia's house. That is the part people do not know because it did not make the main story. News needs a neat shape, and Patricia's arrest gave them one. Retired receptionist tied to serial workplace killer. Survivor stalked. Motel shooting. Evidence tampering. There were enough facts to fill every slot on the screen. They did not have room for the basement. Patricia owned a small rental house outside Massillon under her late husband's name. Police searched it 2 days after the motel shooting. In the basement, behind a false wall made from pegboard and shelves of paint cans, they found a narrow room. There was a cot, a bucket, a chain bolted to a support post. There were names written on the wall in black marker, not hundreds, not even dozens. 9 names. Colin had written some. Patricia had written others. My mother's name was the last one. They found blood on the cot that matched her. They found hair. They found one of her earrings in the drain. They did not find her body. Patricia refused to say where she was. She refused to say a lot of things. She sat in interviews with her bandaged wrist and answered only when she felt like correcting someone. She said Colin had been promising, but undisciplined. She said the office had always needed order. She said people became careless when they believed kindness meant there would be no consequences. When detectives asked about my mother, Patricia smiled and said, "Unresolved items remain open." That was the last thing she said about her. A week later, Patricia died in jail. Not suicide, according to the report. A stroke. A blood clot. Something ordinary and medical and useless. She took my mother's location with her. If my mother was already dead. If she was not, then I do not let myself finish that thought. The company denied everything. Of course they did. They said Patricia had acted alone. They said Colin had acted alone. They said no current leadership had known about any misconduct, any improper access, any missing evidence, any history of complaints. They used words like tragedy and healing and cooperation. They hired outside counsel. They sent flowers to my mother's house. I threw them in the trash. I wish I could say the truth came out and burned them down. It did not. A few people were fired. One evidence tech resigned. The company settled quietly with families who were too exhausted to keep fighting. Patricia became the final monster so everyone else could stay human. That is how these things survive. They do not need ghosts. They need locked doors. Nobody checks. Cameras nobody fixes. Managers who do not want problems. Co-workers who explain away what makes them uncomfortable. And people like me who wait until fear has already grown teeth before they say anything loud enough. I am not telling this because I want sympathy. I am telling it because my mother is still missing. I am telling it because Bishop visited me last week, thinner than before, with a cane and a scar along his jaw from where the tape had torn his skin. He brought a sealed evidence photo he was not supposed to show me. It was from Patricia's basement. On the wall, underneath the list of names, someone had written one sentence in red marker. Not Colin's handwriting, not Patricia's, a third hand. Inventory transfers approved. Bishop told me they are looking into it. He said they are taking it seriously. He said I am safe for now. I nodded because he needed me to, and because arguing would not change anything. That night, after he left, I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the locks on my door. I thought about Colin's drawers full of badges, Patricia's envelopes, the evidence room, the old office, all the hands that had touched all the keys. Then I opened my laptop and started writing this. I am finished now. There is no final knock, no shadow under the door, no last-second warning. The bad ending is simpler than that. They are still out there. They are not chasing me tonight because they do not have to. They have my name. They had my mother. They have each other. They have jobs and keys and clean records. They know how to wait. And I know now that waiting is not the same as being safe. Every morning I wake up and check the door. Every morning it is still locked. Every morning that feels less like relief and more like inventory.